Hi guys, welcome. Just waiting for our co-host. Again, please comment hashtag live if you're watching live with us and hashtag replay if you're watching with us later. This helps us get visible. Also, don't forget to follow us so that you can continue to watch all these videos. We still have several weeks. We've got cake and DJ and all of that stuff coming up. I really appreciate all the time that you have spent watching with us today and every week. So looks like she will be coming on in just a moment. Christy, I sent you a request. Okay, there you are.
Sorry.
That's okay. Welcome.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good.
So you're sideways on mine.
Okay. Let me turn you this way.
There you go. All right. So welcome everybody. My name is Cherie with Messina Inn in Wimberley, Texas. I have been in the hospitality business for over 10 years. I'm a certified wedding coordinator and have been the venue manager and property manager here at Messina Inn since we opened in 2017. We are doing a Facebook Live series about planning a Texas Hill Country wedding. During the series, we've already covered selecting a venue, photography, and wedding planners, so please go back and watch those if you haven't already. Today, we have Christy with Wow Factor Florals joining us to give us the scoop on all things flowers. So welcome, Christy. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you for having me. I own Wow Factor Floral. It's a floral business in Kyle, based in Kyle, but also we have a location in Wimberley, very close to Messina Inn. I've been in the business for about 20 years, and I have a wonderful team of designers and designer assistants. We love what we do, and we love making things beautiful.
Yay! Okay, so we're just going to get some of the maintenance stuff out of taken care of. So for those who are tracking budget, the average wedding in Texas is $30,000, and for florals we have budgeted $2,200, which will get you the essentials of what you need.
Perfect. Yeah.
Okay, so a couple things we're going to talk about today are going to be style, design plan, seasons, and Pinterest things. Everybody loves Pinterest for weddings. So there's a couple of different things that go into play when we're talking about styles. So Christy, you want to start us off with that?
Yeah. So when thinking about flowers for your wedding, the first thing you might want to think about is style. There's many styles that are kind of trending right now, but also more traditional styles are great and still very acceptable in our industry. So some of those would be more traditional, kind of a round style, and then more of a clean and classic, which kind of sometimes does go with the traditional look. But it is more of like a timeless feel. Then we have garden style, which has been around for a couple of years. And then more recently, we have more of a whimsy style. So that would bring in kind of movement with your flowers, a little bit of negative space. Sometimes it can be still dark colors, but it's usually more of like a springtime feel where you have a lot of like things that have their own space, not real close together. That is very much right now we're looking at wildflower, kind of a colorful feel that's kind of in that whimsy style, and then you still have boho inspired. So that brings in elements of like dried materials and pampas grass, bleached materials. So when you're thinking about your style when it comes to flowers, My motto would be do what you love. Do what speaks to you, do what brings you joy. Don't follow what someone else did. Really come up with, your Pinterest board when you think about it, just what speaks to you. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm always telling couples that they don't have to follow everything like they used to. It really is about what they want and need.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, not so much about tradition, but just kind of making it unique for yourself.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So and the design plan is something that I think florists help a lot with, developing that out. And so there's a lot of different aspects that we can kind of dive into when we're talking about design plan. And so one of those is indoor and outdoor factors. Do you have anything you'd like to share with people thinking about those?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so especially in the Texas Hill Country, we have a lot of outdoor ceremonies and some outdoor reception spaces like Messina Inn. And when you think about the elements of weather, you do want to think about what works best for your space. So, for example, in the summer, if you have an outdoor wedding, you might want to think about having more candlelight and less floral, or floral that has a direct water source. Mm-hmm. And your florist can help you with that. We can help you decide if things are designed in foam or if they're designed in free-flowing water. And free-flowing water is certainly going to help your flowers be happy throughout the night. Let me think. Something else would be rain. Most of these are going to be outdoor type Plan B situations, but think about rain. So if you have an outdoor ceremony site, let's talk about what would happen if you do have rain, and always have a Plan B. For what we still have the same floral, but what we can do in a different space. Yeah. Also, when you're thinking about elements of weather, think about wind. So if you are on a hilltop and just in a venue that has typically windy, then we wouldn't want to use anything that would topple. So, yeah.
Which I feel like is one thing that we tend to kind of not think about is the wind, right? Like, it's beautiful, thank the Lord, it's not raining, right?
Right.
But if it's windy, even your napkin fold may need to be changed, or if you have menu cards, making sure those are tucked in precisely. Mm-hmm. So same thing with flowers. We had this wasn't flowers, but it was just, we had one of our very first weddings here. The client had went with a tent card that was on one of those tall metal clip things, and they had you did this wedding with us, by the way, but they had floating candles.
Oh, it was a top hat.
Wind knocked one of their table numbers into the flame, and fire bursted on the table. Luckily, it was just one table, and they were able to flip it out and be done. But I know, sorry, horror story, but wind, it is a factor.
It is a factor. Yeah. And I would think, you being down at the beautiful creek, that you wouldn't have wind down there, but you just never know where wind's going to show up. So
yeah. It's definitely better than being on the hilltop. Like, I live on a hilltop, and I'm always surprised at how much more wind is up there than when I come.
That's true.
But, so another thing in the design plan could be like DIY versus like full design help with your florist.
So DIY, we do have some florists may not, but we do have the option for you to bring some of your own items. So say that you wanted to bring your own candlelight, and we do floral, or you wanted us to bring the candlelight because it is quite heavy and there's some, there's some manual labor to that, and then you bring your own greenery. That is kind of a DIY project. Sometimes we'll do just personals and maybe the ceremony side, and then our brides will take care of guest tables. So there are definitely openings with us to do DIY projects if you like to do those.
Yes, we still have some DIY in it.
Yes.
And one of the things that I think I see too is like some people are just not visual people. So we talked about this last week with planners, and like planners can help you decorate too. They can also help you to do your design plan, but so can your florists. So your florist can help you pull everything together or kind of really guide you in there.
So true. Yeah. So what can I say about that? So sometimes you'll meet with a florist before you have a planner. And we sometimes want to talk a little bit about layout because we're talking about guest tables. So we do sometimes have that first input on what the layout looks like. But if you're a planner and you decide on a different layout, then, we definitely want to match that up. So yes.
Well, and in the design element too, like thinking about things like taller and lower, and just giving it some dimension to where it's not
Yes.
uniform. I know some people like uniform. I tend to be very matchy, in traditionally speaking in design, but with florals, it's sometimes good to think about like having a variety, same type of flowers, but in some colors, on every table maybe, but giving it a little depth and dimension. I personally like a combination of like up to 3 different pieces.
So sometimes when you have a lot of tables, it's great to have 3 different looks. You could have a taller floral and a shorter floral, and then you could have even a candlelight look. And speaking of candlelight, that may be somewhere where if you're pretty budget conscious, maybe you do something on half the tables that are really showy and full, and then on the other tables do more candlelight, because it is going to be comparative to each other, the more budget conscious, but you still get that grand overall feel when you have something tall or something full on the table.
Yeah.
I love different looks. That's kind of my thing.
Me too. It's just, also like if you're sitting at a table that has this, then you look somewhere else, you're like, oh, that one's different. Look at that. It just gives more interest to it.
Yeah.
Not that I'm saying don't do it all the same, because I've seen that too.
Oh yeah.
That's why I like it. I'm trying to think if there's anything else design wise we need to talk about.
I think that sounds good.
Okay. And then seasonally, there's a lot that we could talk about there. So not only can we talk about cold versus hot temperatures, because I know we briefly talked about making sure that if you're at an outdoor venue and you have heat, or even if your ceremony's outdoors, even if your reception's indoors, just making sure that it has weather. But then also there is concerns with cold times as well, I'm sure. And then we can talk about the seasonal flowers and things like that.
So going back to the hot and cold, this might be something where you could have fresh floral, still say you're talking about your arch and it's summer or winter. And but in the summertime, you may have some flowers that are a little bit more hardy that can stand the heat, but you really love hydrangea. So if in cases that you have a flower that's really thirsty, then we could use silk. There are some really great options for quality silk, and we just pop them in there, and they do wonderfully. Most people don't they can't even tell if it's a good quality silk. So that's something that we sometimes consider even when you have a flower like a poppy that you want in your recipe, but it's the fall.
Yeah.
So adding a few poppies when you have that springtime palette in the fall is, really good to have those options that you can still pop a little red poppy in there.
Yeah.
So.
And I think that would be true too, when we're talking about like reasonability, right? Like your this color scheme was really popular about 2 years ago, but like burgundy, blue, and blush. Well, certain seasons you may not be able to get a true burgundy, and you can almost never really get a blue, truly. I mean, you can dye, but So what are some things that you can do for that?
Yeah, so I mean, we do have a paint called Just for Flowers that we can tint up to a certain point of flower. We can make it just brighter or darker, or sometimes change the color depending on the base color of the flower. But again, that is a perfect example of where silk can come in. I had a bride around that time, the burgundy navy blush era, and she wanted navy roses. So God didn't make those. So that's when those silks did come into play. So every once in a while, you do kind of mix the two. We don't specialize in that necessarily. It's not something that we do on a regular, but in special circumstances, we would do that.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think it's something you'd want to have like on every table, but maybe,
Yeah.
here and there.
Mm-hmm.
And then same thing, like if you had, you really wanted burgundy, but it's spring and I don't know. I don't think that they really have burgundies in the spring, do they?
There's a few, but yeah, I mean, if you want a certain flower that is not available at that time, that's definitely like a little touchy touch with a little paint or a
Yeah.
silk.
Um, so as our brides are planning their wedding, they're going to see more and more of what we in the wedding business say is prime season, right?
Yes.
I'll be talking to a couple every once in a while and I'll forget that they don't know when engagement season is, but like everybody in our biz knows. And so I'm like, oh yeah, it's engagement season right now. And they're like, oh, okay. But in the prime season, that is going to be, months where we are going to be our busiest. And so I think you had a recommendation for clients that are getting married in one of those busy, busy, busy seasons. One of our brides says, I love the white and navy with sunflowers, no burgundy or blush.
Yes.
So, well, I'm glad you're thinking about that, Amanda, because I know said I don't know what I want. But yeah. So anyway, back to that. So if you're booking, you had a recommendation for if a client who is booking a wedding, booking vendors for a wedding in a very busy season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So if our season here in Texas, in our area, is going to be spring is March to May, and fall is September to November. And so if you're getting married in those months, it is kind of critical to book your vendors pretty quickly because we do book up. The other months aren't as critical. With a florist, you could meet with us and book right away if you think that we vibe and it's going to work out and you love us and we love you. And then we can always tweak the things, go through your journey with you and make those changes as you plan. It doesn't have to be where you come to us and know the final look. Right. So with all vendors, really, photography, DJ, florist, bartender, caterer, when you know that you want to book someone, I would say do that. Do that, yeah.
Yeah, and especially, when we are talking about the level of vendors that we are working with, I feel like, right? You don't want to wait because they could be taken up.
Yeah.
The beauty of florists and DJs and like sometimes DJs and cake people is like they can book out multiple clients in weekends, so that's
Yeah.
great. But they can only do so many.
Many.
So
Yes.
booking with them is great.
Yeah, definitely.
So let's talk about Pinterest. I have not talked about, I cannot believe in all of these series that we've done so far, we've not talked about Pinterest because we know
My life.
Pinterest is life, right?
Yes.
So one of the things that I think you and I wanted to talk about here was just Pinterest versus reality.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's very common for a bride to come to us and tell us that they want a bouquet and they don't even know that it's not a picture of a silk bouquet or a wood bouquet or usually people know dried, but a non-fresh bouquet. And that actually speaks to the quality of silks. Like you can sometimes, if you get the right ones, you cannot even tell. But in that case, typically they're coming to us because they want a fresh bouquet, and we can most of the time convert it into fresh. There's going to be some times where it has that little navy rose or a little something that is not quite lifelike. But we can always create a sub for that, and we could talk about what subs those would be. But yes, a lot of the pictures that are really trending right now on Pinterest, because there are trending pins, are not real. So that's a common thing to talk about.
Yeah, and there is so much in the market now for fake that I think that's why it's trending, right? Because there's, I don't remember any of the names of these companies, but there's like a big company that you can literally buy your centerpieces, your bridal bouquet, your altar arrangements, like the whole shebang, and it's all fake, but it's a good quality fake.
Yeah.
And so with things like that out there now that used to not be the case, it's becoming more and more what we're seeing in pins.
Yeah. And with brides, sometimes they'll use those companies for the guest table arrangements, but then they still want fresh for, the pictures and just to have something fresh for the personals, the bouquets, boutonnieres, and things like that. So yes, we will see kind of a combination. I would consider that a DIY. If you're still purchasing on your own, come on, I have a puppy. She wants to be part. But if you're wanting to do a DIY, those things that aren't right up against you are sometimes, items that you could purchase already made.
So just, when you are pinning, if you're looking at colors that you don't see in nature, more than likely we can't get it in floral and we have to do something to change that. It's basically, I think, the gist of it.
Yeah.
The other thing that I think Pinterest does is it's great at building out, helping you dream, right? Because what I said earlier, like some brides are are visual people. They have to see it. They can't, they're not artists. They can't dream it up, right? And so what happens with that sometimes is that the dream wedding is not the reality. And that can be in terms of not only fakes, but also budget.
Yes. Yeah. So that is where education comes from a florist. And I always hate to burst a bubble, but but I have to be honest. And when brides come to me and they give me a certain budget and the picture just doesn't follow what 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 their budget is, it's something that I have to be honest about, because the day of, we want them to be happy. We want to have those conversations before the day of. So yeah, it is very, very important to know what you want, but also to talk with your florist about your budget, and let your florist be honest with you about what can and cannot happen in your budget. All budgets are great. There's a budget's there for a reason, and we want to use your budget to the best of its ability, making it go as far as we can. So yeah.
So I think there's, still some things you can still have elements of some of your dream pieces, right? That to make it all come together, which is what we would say is, I guess, what's priority, right?
Yeah, and another option, or something to think about when you're talking about budget and looking at your Pinterest, is what items can we design from our ceremony site that can be repurposed at the reception. That is a real, it's a game changer to have things that can be repurposed. It's creating more life in your budget, really, is what it's doing. So I'm a big believer in repurposing everything that you can, or adjusting your dream where we can have it move to reception and still be useful.
Yeah, and that's in our all-inclusive package, right? We only include the wedding party florals and an altar arrangement and cake florals. But a lot of times we're repurposing those bridesmaids bouquets, we're repurposing those altar arrangements and putting them in various places. Maybe we're mixing them on tables, maybe we're adding them to the fountain. Oh my goodness, talking about that. Like, the flowers love the fountain, right? But anyway, sorry. It's always amazes me. I made a joke one time that we just needed to have water fountains on every table, just a bird baths on every table. They'd have an unlimited supply of water.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's kind of why we did it that way. Of course, we've had couples who have added additional centerpieces, or didn't use their wedding party florals for those things. But you can literally, if you have 3 different design plans, you could spend some money on some bigger focal points, then repurpose the bridesmaids to a table, and then have a candlelit option on another table.
Or you can incorporate some people are like, oh, just a bridesmaid's bouquet on a table. I think it's fine. Sometimes we'll make the bridesmaid's bouquet a little bigger so it can be repurposed. It's still saving in your overall budget of not having to create 2 items, but also maybe have a candlescape where one of the pieces is your bridesmaid's bouquet. So it's not lonely on the table, which is still fine, but it has, a little bit more meat to the centerpiece when you add a few candlelight things.
Yeah, and because at the end of the day, I mean, if that's what you want, and you have the budget for it to go all out, by all means do. But not only, I think you and I are on the same page there in repurposing, but also at the end of the night, what are you going to do with all those flowers? Now, I've had a couple of brides who decided to donate them to a local church or charity. I've dropped them off at the nursing home. So there are things,
all those things,
which are great. But if you're going all out, it makes me want to cry when I see coordinators throwing all that in the trash can.
It is. I always say, flowers have a job, and if their job is to be at your wedding, then they did their job.
Right.
But in reality, you know, they still are good. They still are fresh at the end of the night, unless it was, you know, really hot, and then they're probably a little tired.
Yeah.
But we're big on repurposing even after the wedding. Let your guests take them home.
Yeah.
Like if anybody wants the flowers, have them.
Yeah.
You know, enjoy them.
The flowers now in regards to like they do all kinds of things with resin and
Mm-hmm.
they do
Oh yeah.
bookends, they do tables, they do, I mean, everything in between. So
Yeah, and the nursing homes and the retirement communities, they love them because they have activities that they can pull the flowers out and have them in rare form again. So then their residents can make an arrangement for themselves or for each other. And those are great activities, you know, to keep flowers alive.
yeah.
Brings joy.
Okay, so I'm gonna put a little spring one on you here for just real quick, but
Okay.
If you could pick one thing about a wedding, what is that you get to see? What is your favorite?
Like anything for the night.
Yeah.
As a florist, we come for setup, and we're typically out of there within an hour before the ceremony. And for whatever reason, if we're still around for ceremony, I love it. I just love it because we don't get to see that. We see the send off a lot because we're there at 11 or 12 at night to pick some items up. So some brides rent items from us,
Right.
and we come back that night and pick up. So we see the send off a lot, but we don't see the ceremony. And so that's,
yeah, I know. I'm always prepping my staff during ceremony, so like I'm off away where y'all can't hear me getting all my staff prepped out. And so when I get videos from, you know, videographers and I get to hear the ceremony, I'm like, oh.
I mean, I cannot tell you when same thing when we get videos. We're in there. Sometimes I'm crying or, you know, whatever. It's just super special to see that. Because that's not something, you know, we see all the hustle and bustle in the beginning and the hustle and bustle at the end, but we don't see the best part.
Yeah.
So it's pretty special. Here, right? I know, right? Yeah.
Well, I hope that, you know, we've helped you all on your journey in trying to find your floral, determining your floral needs, and we've given you a lot of things to think about and some things to help you with your planning journey. So next week we will be talking about DJs and entertainment elements. So until then, please comment live. If you are watching with us live, don't forget to share this with all your friends who are engaged, and comment #replay if you're watching later. This just helps it stay relevant. Don't forget to follow Wow Factor and Messina N for more videos.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks, Christy. Thanks for joining me today.
Thank you. My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.